Hey Linda, we're running late. I don't know which tie to wear. Should I wear the blue one or the flowery one?
Easter.
Hey Mark, what are you doing?
I'm getting ready for Easter.
Awesome. Hey, why are you wearing shorts?
Oh, nobody's even gonna see him anyways.
Hey, Kent, aren't you supposed to be up?
What is this?
The church service is just starting.
What?
Nope. It's gotta go.
Okay, so shoe options. Who am I kidding?
Aren't you gonna put milk in that?
No time. Do you want to wear that? Do you want to wear this? Yeah. Made it.
Really? That's what you're wearing? Pajamas?
Oh man, I forgot to dress.
Good thing we got here early to get good seats.
These are great seats, Mark.
Babe, you gotta go.
No, I'm trying to figure out what I'm wearing.
Just wear this green one. It's beautiful.
I wore this last year. Did I miss it?
Nope, just in time.
Whew. So glad I got to come to church today.
Oh no, I got this.
Did I join a church staff or a circus? You've got to be kidding me.
Out of the shadows, bound for the gallows. A dead man walking, till love came calling. Oh, rise up, rise up. 6 feet under, I thought it was over. An answer to prayer, the voice of a savior. Oh, rise up, rise up. All at once,
Good morning and welcome to Redwood Park Church on this beautiful Easter Sunday morning. I love Easter. It's an amazing time of year. In fact, it's my favorite time of the year because today we get to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. My name is Greg Langman and I'm the transitional lead pastor here at Redwood Park Church. And I want to welcome you here from my living room to yours. We're so glad you've chosen to join with us today on Easter Sunday. This morning, we want to encourage you to engage with us. And there's all kinds of ways that you can do that. One of the features that you'll notice on your screen is called the chat feature. Just click on that, pull it up, and say hello. It's a great place to interact with friends, family, and others who are joining us today. Another way that you can engage is through our musical worship time. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel a little awkward or a little strange, being in my living room with my wife or my kids or my dog and just singing out loud because I'm not that good of a singer. So maybe you want to do what I try sometimes, and that is crank up the volume and sing anyways. With the volume loud, I can't hear myself, but I can still participate. Now, others of you might just want to keep the volume where it is and be quiet and listen to the music as it just kind of flows over you. But regardless, we want to encourage you, engage this morning in those simple and practical ways. Well, this is Easter Sunday, and it is the start of a new series called Dead Man Walking. Jesus is alive, and Jesus wants to continue to breathe life into all of us, not just today, but in the days ahead, into all areas of who we are. And so we want to encourage you to keep joining with us each week in this series called Dead Man Walking. As we enter into today's service, though, my prayer is that you would truly meet with Jesus today. I'm not sure what all you faced or what you're coming into this gathering with today, but what I do know is that Jesus loves you. And Jesus is here, and Jesus is present, and he wants to meet with you. So maybe as you are pulling up with your chair and engaging in, I want to encourage you to pray this really simple prayer today. And it just is simply this: Jesus, meet with me today. Just pray that silent in your heads. And I want to invite you to join with Dre and Kate and Adrian as they lead us in a time of musical worship.
Today we have victory over the grave, so let's declare that and worship together.
I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. waves fall and the tempest roars, you are with me. When creation falls, still my soul will soar on your mercy. I'll walk through the fire with my head lifted high, and my spirit revived in your story. I'll look to the cross as my failure is lost in the light of your glorious grace. Let the ruins come to light in the beauty of your name, rising up from the ashes. God, forever you reign, and my soul will find refuge, shadow of your wing. I will love you forever, and forever I'll sing. When the world caves in, still my hope will cling to your promise. With my courage ends, let my heart find strength in your presence. I'll walk through the fire with my head lifted high, and my spirit revived in your story. I'll look to the cross as my failure is lost in the light of your glorious grace. Let the ruins come to light in the beauty of your name, rising up from the ashes. God, forever you reign, and my soul will find refuge, shadow of your wings. I will love you forever, and forever I'll sing. Let the ruins come to light in the beauty of your name, rising up from the ashes. God, forever you reign, and my soul will find refuge in the shadow of your wings. I will love you forever, and forever I'll sing. Come to life in the beauty of your name, rising up from the ashes. God, forever you reign, and my soul will find refuge in the shadow of your wings. I will love you forever, and forever I'll sing. Let the ruins come to light in the beauty of your name, rising up from the ashes. God, forever you reign, my soul will find refuge in the shadow of your wings. I will love you forever, and forever I'll sing. Come to life in the beauty of your name, rising up from the ashes. God, forever you reign, so find refuge in the shadow of your wing. I will love you forever.
God, we thank you for who you are. And God, today we are celebrating your resurrection. And because of that, God, we get to share in the victory that you won for us. We get a second chance, another opportunity to step into the life that you're calling us to. And God, as our hope is renewed and restored this morning, God, we come before you and we want to give you all the praise and honor that you're due. You are the King of Kings. You are alive and you are seated on the throne in heaven. And God, I just pray that as we continue in this service, that our excitement and anticipation would grow as we look to you, knowing that you are doing so many new things, that you're raising things that were dormant in our lives and you are stirring things up within us, God, and just opening up new doors of opportunity, the possibility of what life could be with you. God, the options are endless. And so for that, we are grateful. We are expectant. And so as Mark brings his teaching, as we're kicking off this new series, God, I pray that the words would just hit close to home. That for people on the other side of this screen that are listening and watching, God, that they would truly know the hope of Jesus that comes with the resurrection. God, you are risen, you are alive, and God, we are celebrating today. So come and have your way in our hearts and just show up in a big way for us this morning. We love you, Jesus. Amen. All right, Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and happy Easter to you. My name is Mark Davenport, and I'm one of the pastors at Redwood Park Church, and I am so glad that you could be joining us this morning for our online Easter celebration. You know, one of the traditions that I've experienced at Easter is called a congregational response, and it's when one person says, "He is risen," and you, the congregation, say, "He is risen indeed." And we do this every Easter, and I'm not going to let the fact that we're having an online service keep us from being able to experience this together. So I'm going to say my part, and then you're going to say yours. I want you to say it loud. I want everyone around you to hear it. So here goes. He is risen. Awesome. Fantastic. I think I can almost hear that from here. Let me say this to you. It is the truth that he is risen. And the fact that he is risen makes anything possible. You know, I have a lot of great memories surrounding Easter. I remember my mom buying my brother and I new clothes, and of course there was always treats at Easter and a time of family connection. And depending on when Easter fell on the calendar, sometimes the weather was warm, there was always a sense of something new coming. Spring was in the air and summer was just around the corner. This year, things look quite a bit different. Who could have thought that we would need to celebrate Easter separated from one another, locked down in our homes? It wouldn't surprise anyone right now if that caused you to feel a bit down, a bit depressed, maybe a bit sad. So if those emotions are ringing a bell for you, then let me tell you today, that puts you in the perfect position to grab hold of exactly what Jesus' followers were feeling on the morning of the third day after Jesus had died. Think of what the disciples of Jesus must have been thinking and feeling. You know, I think it's remarkable that none of them were thinking about what Jesus had told them, that he was going to rise from the dead on the third day. There's nothing in the Bible that tells us that these committed followers, Jesus' disciples, the one who knew Jesus the best and the ones who were the closest to him, were in any way anticipating the resurrection of Jesus. There's no recorded conversation between any of them saying, "Hey, remember what Jesus told us, that he was going to rise on the third day? Let's go down to the tomb and just see if anything's happened." You know, in fact, what the Bible tells us, with one exception that I'll mention shortly, is exactly the opposite of that. Look at what the disciples say when the women who were at the tomb and saw the two angels there come back to tell the guys what they saw. From Luke 24:11 it says, "But the story sounded like nonsense to the men, and so they didn't believe it." You know, they didn't say, "Oh yeah, I remember what Jesus said, that's amazing." Instead, they treated what the women said as nonsense. They believed that the women were making this up. put yourself in the room. Imagine what these guys were saying to the ladies. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but I would guess it probably wasn't that kind. You see, these guys, they knew that Jesus was dead. His body was in the tomb. This whole Jesus revolution thing that they were part of was over. I mean, it had stopped, it had finished, and they knew it. And everything they had staked their lives on was now finished. They had left their jobs, their families, their belief systems, everything. They had gone all in with Jesus and lost. And now he was gone. What about you? Where are your feelings and emotions at today? In the midst of isolation, job loss, pay cuts, financial anxiety, relational tensions, uncertainty, stress about the future, can you identify with any of those feelings and emotions? How many times have you decided that you were going to believe in something or someone, and this time was going to be different? And then, bam, another bitter disappointment. And if that's where you find yourself today, then you are exactly where Jesus' disciples were on the morning of his resurrection. You see, many of us have been down this road before. We've all had all kinds of people and situations having us believe that it was going to be different this time. And for some of you, maybe that was getting your hopes up for a new job or a new relationship. Maybe for some of you watching today, it's like when you tried to find a church or a community to fit into. It's just felt like that every time you tried to find something new, it turned into a big dud. And when that happens, you've got brand new disappointments that you're having to deal with again. And friends, I know what that feels like. It's happened to me in some of the moves that I've made in my life. I've had expectations for situations that I was stepping into and felt like this was the break that I had been waiting for, only to be let down again. And this hurts even more when you've gone all in on something. And when this has happened to us, it leaves us gun shy and not even wanting to try again. It leaves us scared that we're going to get hurt again. And worst of all, it kills the hope that's inside of us. I love what Greg shared last week about encouraging us away from expectation and into expectancy. Living in expectancy is where we want to be. And we see this type of expectancy in the Apostle Peter, because look at what the book of Luke says that Peter did when he heard about what the ladies were saying about Jesus. And Peter is the one exception that I referred to earlier. It says in Luke 24:12 that Peter ran to the tomb to look and see for himself. And then Peter returned home wondering what happened. Even then, it doesn't say that Peter believed that Jesus rose from the dead. It says Peter came home wondering what happened. And I believe this is where many of us find ourselves today. We're standing back and we're looking at our lives, and some of us are asking the question, what happened? We started out in the direction that we believed was right, and then somehow we found ourselves in a totally different place than we thought we would be at this time in our lives. And for some of us, marriages have disintegrated. You didn't sign up for that, but that's what happened. For others, you're now stuck in a job you can't leave because you need the money. It isn't what you went to school for. It's not your dream job. And you're asking yourself, what happened? And perhaps for some of you, you know you're broken inside because of unresolved pain and hurt. And you've sought out counselors and therapists, and they haven't really helped. And now you're looking at your life and you're wondering, what happened? And when we get to this point where we start to self-examine, we start wondering how we ended up here. And we begin to ask what happened to our hopes? What happened to our dreams? And for some of us, it feels like we're dead people walking around. Some of us, we've suffered great loss and feel like we've been driven into the ground. Our physical bodies are alive, but our insides feel dead. But I want you to know today, on Easter Sunday, that there is fantastic news. And this morning, the news is that there is one man who is walking around who was dead, but is now alive. There is one man who conquered death and set us free. There's one man who gave up his life so that we might have ours. And that man's name is Jesus. The stone was rolled away. He is alive, and he rose from the dead, and that's what happened. It's in the life of this man, Jesus, where we can begin to find the answers to our what happened questions. I love it that when we begin to understand just who Jesus is and what he did for you and I, he can turn our what happened questions into what's possible questions. Jesus' resurrection from the dead, his victory was over the greatest enemy of us all, death. And that now paves the way for us to discover our hopes and dreams again. We can begin to trust other people again. We can reach out to him and make our requests and desires and needs known to him. And then we can watch what he will do. We can do this all because of Jesus' victory over death. I love it how the Apostle Paul says it in 1 Corinthians 15. He says, death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting? But thank God he gives us victory over sin and death through our Lord Jesus Christ. And this is why the story, the Easter story, is the greatest story of them all. It's the story of Jesus overcoming death, which means that hopelessness and fear and sorrow and pain and death are not the end of our story. And friends, if that's where you are at today, feeling those things, it doesn't have to end there. You see, the story of Jesus' resurrection didn't just paint the way to God. It paves the way for us to experience new life with God. And when we choose to believe in Jesus and the victory over death, we are choosing to step into new beginnings and new truth. Paul said it in 2 Corinthians chapter 5. He said that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone. A new life has begun. But friends, in order for us to experience this new life, we've got to choose it. We've got to believe it. And I'm guessing that there are probably a few of you listening to this right now who are on the fence of deciding whether to believe the story of Jesus rising from the dead. And maybe there's even a few of you who would say that you don't believe this story at all. And to those of you who are watching this and feeling this right now, let me tell you, I get it. I understand that this seems crazy. And I will concede that people rising from the dead just isn't something that's going on every day. I mean, if it was, then some of the TV shows that we're watching would need to be reclassified as reality shows. But if that's where you're at today, then that's exactly where Jesus' disciples were with it too, because they didn't believe it either. You know, the Bible tells us that Jesus appeared to them after he rose from the dead. In fact, it says in Luke 24 that when Jesus showed up after being raised from the dead, that they were freaked out. They thought they were seeing a ghost, and Jesus had to eat something to prove that he wasn't. The Bible even records that one of the disciples named Thomas, who wasn't there, didn't believe the other disciples when they were telling him the story of Jesus appearing to them. Thomas told them that he wouldn't believe it until he could put his own hands into the palms of Jesus. I want to read from that story, which is in John chapter 20. And it says this: one of the 12 disciples, Thomas, was not with the others when Jesus came. And they told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he replied, "I won't believe it unless I see the nail wounds in his hands, put my fingers into them, and place my hand into the wound in his side." 8 days later, the disciples were together again, and this time Thomas was with them. The doors were locked, but suddenly, as before, Jesus was standing among them. "Peace be with you," he said. And then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and look at my hands. Put your hand into the wound in my side. Don't be faithless any longer. Believe." You know, when Jesus first appeared to the disciples when they were in that locked room, you know, imagine for what they were talking about for the next 8 days. what were they saying? I mean, they must have been talking about having seen Jesus and that he rose from the dead. And then they would have been excited about what that meant. They were probably making plans. And for those 8 days, Thomas is with them. And he's listening to these conversations, and he's probably wondering what these guys have been smoking. And he was probably wondering if they were trying to make him the victim of the greatest April Fool's joke of all time. Thomas needed to experience Jesus for himself. And that's what I'm praying for all of us today. That regardless of who you are or where you are, that you would not just hear the Easter story and chalk it up to, yeah, I've heard that before, been there, done that. But that you would actually experience Jesus today. That you would experience his unconditional love. That you would experience his forgiveness. And you would experience the healing that he wants to pour out on you. Jesus' body was broken and put on a cross for you and me. But on this Easter Sunday, what we get to experience is not his pain and not his brokenness, but his life, because he is no longer dead, friends. He is alive. And if you find yourself doubting or wondering if this possibly could be real, summon the courage today to ask Jesus to reveal himself to you. I believe that if you ask that question with sincerity in your hearts, Jesus will show himself to you in a way that's real for you, and you can put your fingers into the palms of his hands. You know, when we choose to experience Jesus, we find that there's a way beyond our places of regret and brokenness. When we embrace Jesus, he will lead us through all of our pain and fear and loneliness. Now, regardless of where your heart is right now, you are not beyond redemption. And if you are in darkness, Jesus can bring you into light. If you're in confusion, Jesus can bring you into clarity. And if you're suffering, Jesus can bring you hope. And if you're in pain, Jesus can bring healing. You see, where there's death, Jesus can bring life, because Jesus beat death. Jesus won and the devil lost, and that is what Easter is all about. So for all of you watching this today, wherever you are, whatever you may be experiencing, my challenge to you is the same one that Jesus gave to Thomas. Jesus said to him, don't be faithless any longer. Believe. And believing in Jesus makes anything possible. And that's one of the cornerstones of Redwood Church's mission statement. What do you see that's impossible in your life right now that you want to be possible? And maybe for some of you, that thing that you're thinking about is so impossible that you gave up on it a long time ago. But friends, this is the Sunday where impossible things become possible. When people rise from the dead like Jesus. So today on Easter Sunday, God, I believe, is giving you the chance to put that impossible thing back on the table and choose to believe him for it. Because I believe God wants to do some healing in us this morning. Where do you need healing in your life right now? Do you need physical healing, emotional healing, financial healing? Jesus is here with us right now, listening to the cries of our hearts, and we're going to pray for that healing in just a couple of minutes. But one of the ways that we receive encouragement in this realm of healing is when we get to hear the story of someone who's experienced that in their own life. And you see, when Jesus comes into our story, then all things become possible. And I want to invite you now to listen to an amazing story of healing. A story of one woman whose entire life has changed because of her encounter with Jesus. I want to introduce you to Melanie from our Redwood family. So let's sit back and listen to her story.
My name is Melanie Anderson. I am a mom of 4 kids. I have 3 adult children, one that is 21, 2 that are 25, and I have a 10-year-old. I am currently happily married, and I give all that grace to God for all the wonderful things he's been doing in my life. Prior to coming to the Lord, I had a very troubled childhood. I was brought up in a broken home, and there was 10 of us kids, all from 3 different marriages that my dad had. And we didn't live together as a whole family, so we would bounce back and forth from place to place to place. At the age of 14, I lost my best friend to a house fire, and that started a decline in my life and things that I had wanted for my life. I had decided then that I wasn't going to continue living in the patterns that my family had lived in. Just after my 16th birthday, my sister was murdered, and it was not a good scene for any of us. We spent years in court, and from that, I blamed God. I got really angry with God, and I turned against him and decided that I wasn't going to have anything to do with the church whatsoever. So I continued. I had 2 beautiful children, and I got married, and I was in a marriage of 22 years. That wasn't successful. I left him in 2007. And in 2007, I met my current husband, and we decided that we were going to have a child of our own. And after several unsuccessful attempts at that, we got pregnant. And that's when I returned to the church, and I returned on a part-time basis. I was one of the ones that would be the last person in the doors, the first person out the door, so I didn't have to talk to anybody or be committed to doing anything for the church. I just was like Easter, Christmas, that kind of in and out kind of Christian. And in 2014, I was diagnosed with spinal and brain issues. I have 7 pockets of fluid throughout my spinal cord that take up the majority of the space in my spinal cord and brainstem. And in 2018, I had brain surgery to try and correct that. During that process, I gave my life to God. I decided in the fall of 2017 that I was going to come back and be all in and do things that I'd never done before and trust in ways that I've never trusted before. I had the brain surgery in the fall of 2018. I had been off work already for 3 years, and I went in there with peacefulness and a lack of being afraid or any of those things because I had God with me. And what stopped me from doing it sooner and becoming a part of that a lot sooner was because I was afraid that I wasn't ready, that I wasn't good enough, that I had to be a better person, I had to be a better Christian, I had to be living a life of God. And in my mind, because of how I was brought up and the ideas I had in my mind, was I had to be a perfect person. I had to live a life without sin. I had to do everything that God wanted me to on a daily basis. And that's not who we are. That's not who we're meant to be. We are creatures of habit, and we are sinners, and we are people who wake up and have trials and tribulations and temptations on a regular basis. And God knows that. And I handed all those things over to him. He took care of them, just like he promised. He promised that he would always be with me. He promised that he would take care of me and never leave me, and that he would be by my side and to be able to make it through anything. And people take a look at my life and they say, how do you manage it? How do you do it? And my answer to them is, I don't. I do it with God, and I do it through Jesus. Without them by my side through all these things, I probably wouldn't have survived. My marriage was on a rocky road, and things weren't going well. And again, when I handed that over to God, God put people in my life that were amazing. I have the most wonderful mentors anybody could ever ask for. People in the church stood up and came, and they helped me out. It seems that God, every time I was down or low or had an issue, put people right there for me. And with Easter coming up and the resurrection of Jesus, the one thing that it shows us and proves to us more than anything is everybody's allowed a second chance, or a third chance, or a fourth chance, or in my case, 35 years of chances after chances after chances to come to Christ and to believe and to give our lives over to him, and to do it willingly and honestly and wanting to do that. I think when I look back and people say, well, you've gone through so much, you struggled trauma as a child, you were sexually assaulted, you were physically assaulted, you were abused, you had your sister murdered, my brother died of an overdose, my other brother died of brain cancer, my best friend died of cancer, my other friend died of cancer in the same year. And I could go on and on and on. And as many of you out there are struggling through these exact same things, bad marriages and not being able to work, money problems, issues with your kids. I was living in shame and guilt for so long that it became a norm for me. It became something that's just the way life was going to be. Things are never going to get better. But with God, anything's possible. And I'm living proof that you can work through any kind of relationship, any kind of hardship, any kind of heartache, any kind of loss. I've seen most of it. I've done most of it. I've been a part of most of it. And God's been with me every step of the way. And I would just like to thank everybody out there who's listening and who has been a part of my success and a part of my life. And I'd like to thank them from the bottom of my heart. And I'd just like to say at this time and Easter, and everybody's allowed a second chance. Everybody can get a new life. You just have to ask God. And there may be some of you out there who think that, this all sounds kind of crazy or this is all hokey and stuff. Give it a try. Just say, God, come into my life. If you are there, if you're real, show me something, anything. And you wouldn't believe the signs that you get and the messages that are clearly from him to you on a regular basis, on a daily basis, if you're willing to see them.
He has walked upon the open waters. The sea was calm with just a word from him. He has fought the raging war of sorrow. When he speaks, a whisper shouts within. I see a miracle in an empty grave. The one we thought was dead has come to life again. I see a miracle in every chain you break. The power of heaven roaring within me. He will lift the anxious and the weary, calling home the burden and the lost. 'Cause I am proof that you delight in second chances. I am proof of the power in the cross. I see a miracle in an empty grave. The one we thought was dead has come to life again. I see a miracle in every chain you break. The power of heaven roaring within me. Oh, for love you rose triumphant. Oh, for love you are. Oh, for love you came back for me. Oh, for love. Oh, for love. Oh, for love. My name is worthy. Oh, for love you come. Oh, for love your scars cried mercy. Oh, for love. Oh, for love. Jesus Christ, passion is his name. Traded all his glory for our shame. Like he rose, freedom from the ashes. We will rise from death to life again. I see a miracle
is a reminder that Jesus not only died and rose again, but it's our greatest symbol of hope that we have today, and demonstrates that miracles do happen and are still happening through the power of the resurrection. Thank you so much, Melanie. What an amazing story of how Jesus brings transformation and healing into our lives. And I believe this morning that this transformational love of Jesus that Melanie just finished sharing is available to us today. So I'm going to ask you to do something from wherever you're watching this from. If you need healing for your body, for your mind, for your emotions, for your finances, for your hurts, for your brokenness, or from pain in any other way that I haven't mentioned, will you hold out your hands like this? I'd like to pray for you to receive that on this Easter Sunday, the healing power and provision of Jesus will come to you. So I'm going to say a prayer. So for those of you who want healing, hold your hands out with your palms up as a sign to God that says, I'm ready, Lord. I'm ready. So God, I'm going to pray right now for those with their palms up, pointed towards you, and their hearts positioned toward you, that you would come right now, God, and you would minister your love and your healing power, the same power that raised Jesus from the dead. You would now infuse into the hearts, lives, minds, and bodies of those that need your healing today. And God, I'm asking you, because you said for us to ask, and that you would hear us, and you would listen. And on this Easter Sunday, when we celebrate the power that raised you from the dead, God, that we would now in turn be able to receive the power of that healing. And Lord, that it would be more than just a good feeling in our minds, in which we go, oh, that's nice. But we would actually feel this in our bodies. Feel the healing power come into us in ways that are tangible for us to feel. And Lord, that as that healing power begins to move all the way through us in all of the areas of our minds, our bodies, our wills, and our emotions, Lord, that we would become transformed. And Lord, I thank you that you are doing that in us and through us right now. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen. You know, Jesus Christ, he rose from the dead on the third day. His resurrection and victory over death paved the way for us to spend eternity with him and the possibility of life transformation now. And if you're watching this now and you haven't made a decision to follow Jesus, I want to extend that invitation to you. I want to reach out to you today, and I want to offer you the opportunity to make the choice to believe. Just like Jesus said to Thomas, don't be faithless any longer. Believe. Step out with courage today and take hold of what Jesus has to offer you. And if you want to take that step and invite Jesus to partner with you right now to make anything possible in your life, pray this prayer with me right now. You can pray it inside, or you can pray it out loud. I think praying it out loud is better. Even if you whisper it, pray it out loud. And I'll pray right now. I will pray this. Jesus, I'm reaching out to you today. I'm going to make a choice to put away my doubts and my fears. I am not perfect. I've messed up in my life. I've got brokenness and pain. But I want to invite you to partner with me in my life. I want to invite you into these broken places and begin the process of healing and restoration in me. I'm reaching out with all I have today to say, I want you and I need you in my life. Thank you for dying for me. And I choose to believe in you today. Amen. And if that's a prayer that you prayed with me today, let me be the first one to say, welcome. Welcome to the family of God. And I would encourage you to tell someone that you prayed that prayer. In fact, tell us, send us an email at prayer@RedwoodPark.org. Not just so that you can tell us, but so that we can continue to pray for you in your journey of faith. Because we need each other. And we want to partner with you in this journey at this time. So finally, let me just say once again to you, my church family and my friends, Happy Easter. Thank you so much for giving me the privilege of spending this time with you today. And I'm now going to turn things over to the worship team who are going to be leading us in another song. So worship team, take it away.
With glory now, the Savior knelt to wash our feet. Now at his feet we bow. The one who wore our sin and shamed, now robed in majesty. Radiance of perfect love now shines for all to see. Your name is victory. Your praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. Your praise will rise to Christ our King. The fear that held us now gives way to him who is our peace. His final breath upon the cross is now alive in me. Your name is victory. Your praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. Your praise will rise to Christ our King. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King Our God has robbed the grave. Our God has robbed the
Thank you for joining us on Easter Sunday. I hope that your prayer at the beginning that Jesus would meet you, I hope it came true. I trust that Jesus met you in some way this morning, in a way that was significant or meaningful. For some, maybe you connected with Jesus for the very first time, as Mark invited you to pray, to invite Jesus to be the leader of your life. Others of you, maybe you experienced some sort of miraculous healing, as Mark invited you to pray and to trust Jesus, who is alive and is the healer, to bring healing into that part of your life where you just desperately need his touch. Others of you, maybe you just need someone to pray with you right now. If you would like someone to pray with you, I would encourage you to email us at prayer@RedwoodParkChurch.org. Again, the email address is up on the screen. If you email us at that address, we have an amazing team of people who would love to connect and to pray with you. I also know that as you go throughout this week, some of you are really feeling maybe lonely and disconnected. One of the things I just wanted you to know is that this week we will have a team coming together made of staff and people from the congregation who will be rebooting our small group ministry that will begin again the week of April 19th. If you're wanting to be a part of a small group, I would encourage you to watch for more details as they come in the next couple of weeks. I also want to encourage you to continue to connect through giving. I want to thank you on behalf of the church for your generosity. Thank you for continuing to give in a season where sometimes I know it's not easy to give. Many of you are giving sacrificially, and that's allowing us to navigate through this season, not just survive though, but to actually thrive in this next season. We want to, as a church, do all that we can to equip and empower and mobilize you to be the church where you are. So this week, if you would like to contribute to Redwood Park Church, there's a number of ways you can do that. You can go onto our website and click on the Give button. and that'll direct you to an online giving platform called Tithely. You can also mail in your checks, and our address is on the website. There's also one last option, which is the Tithely app, and you can also check that out. But again, thank you for your generosity in giving financially to Redwood during this season. I also want to encourage you to be generous with your time this week. There's a lot of people out there who are hurting. There's a lot of people out there who are lacking hope. There's a lot of people out there who just are lonely. I want to encourage us as the church this week to pray for people and to just respond to the needs that are around you with your time, your talents, your finances, whatever it takes to bring the hope and joy and peace and presence of Jesus to the people who live in the amazing town and city of Thunder Bay. So again, thank you for joining us this week. I invite you to join us again next week as we continue our series called Dead Man Walking. Now, one last thing, I just about forgot. You might want to stick around just for another minute or two because, well, there's one last clip that I don't think you're going to want to miss. Bye for now, everyone. Have a great week.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Davenport. I'm one of the pastors at Redwood Park Church. I am so glad you could be joining us this Easter Sunday morning. And Simeon, what are you doing?
Oh, I'm so sorry, Dad.
I'm Mark Davenport, one of the pastors at Redwood Park Church. I am so glad you could be joining us this Easter Sunday morning. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Karen, can you vacuum another time, please? Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's dinner time!
Oh my gosh. Joining us on this Easter Sunday morning. It's a great time. I can't believe the phone is ringing. Did we turn off the phone?